This is the Outliers Edge podcast, where we champion the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity by taking them to the edge of their comfort zone so that they can lead us to the edge of what's next. I'm your host, Niiamah Ashong. Let's do this. Hello there. This is Niiamah Ashong, founder of Outliers Edge, where we bring together the most outlying outliers, the most pioneering pioneers, and the most mavericky mavericks in order to explore more of their journey, their stories of how they created unconventional success in their life. And I realized right there when I said that, I said created as though it's done. It's just a past action. No, we're actually here to continue to explore and pull out some of how they create this success in their world, especially as outliers, people who do things that don't necessarily fit the norm, that are above or different from the average, and they're able to create their impact, their income, their legacy based on who they are and what they bring out into the world. Today, I have the pleasure of having a conversation with Abbi Wood. And the two of us were talking right before here, and we just know that this conversation is going to be one that is full of that's organic, that's real, and that's going to be just as perfect in its imperfection as it needs to be. So, Abbi, I'm really glad to have you. Actually, I'm going to say to have you on the show, but it's more than that. I'm really glad to just be in conversation with you. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me know if I need to close the door, okay?
Okay.
Do you hear it, or is it just me?
I can hear some things, but only when we're like not talking.
Okay.
So yeah, why don't you go ahead and just close the door? We'll take care of that.
Okay.
Yep. All right, great. So now we got the door closed. It's fun because a part of me is like, oh, should we go and edit this out and so on and so forth? But you'll probably find with me, like, I just like to keep it real and to leave space here, because what I have found through the work I've done with various outliers, people who have gone on to, whether they're being an outlier in their workplace, whether they're an outlier as an entrepreneur, whether they're an outlier in their family, it's like they're able to take advantage of moments that most other people wouldn't. And also they aren't necessarily held by the rules or the norms of having to make everything look perfect. I'd rather just let it be. This was life, and I appreciate you actually being someone who takes notice and changes your environment, rather than just being like subject to your environment. That actually says a lot to me as we enter into this conversation. So Abbi, thank you very much for that.
Thank you. I feel like that was a little too deep for me, but I'm gonna go with it.
I'm a deep person, Abbi. That's how it works with me. Yeah. So let's get to know you a little bit here. What in this podcast, I guess the way I look at it is that a lot of people spend time focused on what they see from the outside. They either, like, it might be what you look like, the job that you have, the titles that are there, the amount of money you're making, so on and so forth. That's cool. I do want to celebrate you and the things that you've accomplished externally. And I want to spend more time spent on like who you are on the inside and who you had to be in order to accomplish that. So let me just ask you here. I'll ask you this question. Maybe make it a two-parter here, but the first question here is like, this is Outliers Edge. Like, what makes you an outlier to yourself? Like, what if you're going to call yourself an outlier, why would you be one?
So it's funny that you said that you don't want to focus so much on the accomplishments as who I am on the inside. I would say that my biggest accomplishment is that the work that I've done internally. I'm going to tell you a story about my daughter.
So.
Since she was a toddler, actually, she was the only kid we would take her to the playground, and she was always running to the edge, which can be frustrating for a parent, right? You're like, there's all this like playground equipment here. Why can't you just like stay and play, be entertained by what we've got right in front of you? And she was always looking for something else. And she was the child that I would say to her, do you want the pink spoon or the blue spoon, right? Like you're supposed to do with kids. You give them the choice, so they choose one of those and just make everything simpler. And no, she would pick a third option. She was so self-aware. She just always had this innate understanding of what she wanted. And she instantly recognized that it wasn't in front of her, which I think a lot of us can easily miss. And so that was tough for me as a parent in two ways. One, as a parent, but also because it took me back to my childhood and being told by my parents. My mom would literally say, Abby, if we tell you it's day, you're going to say it's night. My sister would say, Abby, stop rocking the boat. Why can't you just accomplish what you want to accomplish within the system? That's my sister. She has worked within the system. She has achieved and accomplished, and she's living a successful life on her terms, working within the system. And that has always like blown my mind. I can't comprehend, because I was never, it seems, able to do that. Something inside me just had to rock, just had to look for what was outside the box. So I'd say, does that answer your question?
It does. It gives me a chance to really like see you in that element. One of the things that's coming out here is, yes, I have a little son. He's 1 year old right now, and so I'm imagining him at the playground and just going straight to the edge, So I feel you when you say, like, as a parent, it made things a little bit more difficult, but at the same time, I like how that is also just a reflection of you and how that's always been you in various ways. And I love that element too, when that you put it in the context of, like, as a parent, there's these implications, because as you were talking, I'm like, oh, I think this is how it might be for others who experience outliers out there, who are going against the system, going against the way things are, or not even against. And I think I talk about Mavericks. Like, the idea of a Maverick is like, I don't need to go left or right. I'm just going to I don't need the pink spoon or the blue spoon. I want this, completely irrelevant or irregardless of what you are asking. This is what I desire, and going for it. And I think that, like, that the tension between who we are as individuals and as outliers and the system that's around us really makes an impact. So, like, I get curious here. So you've been able to build your life as someone who rocks the boat. You've been able to build your life as someone who, like, sees the system, I'm assuming understands the system, and then still chooses to do your own element there, your own path. Can you tell me about a time that was really meaningful for you when you kind of, I want to say circumvented the system, but it almost makes the system too big of a player in this here, when you did something and it ended up being not what the system or the norm or what most others would look for, something that you're proud of around that?
That's gonna take some thought, really. There's been so many moments. So a time where I circumvented the system and
just a time that you were
own.
you. Yeah, really, really you. And, like, I don't want to make the system, I don't want to play up the system too much more than just you being you, and whether or not the system was along for the ride.
I don't know if this is going to be relevant, but I'll share it because it's on my heart.
Yes, please.
So just growing up in a strict environment and not having the freedom to do simple things that my peers were doing as a teenager, and honesty and transparency are both really valuable to me. And so I tried again and again to, I guess, work within the system and gain permission from the authority figures in my family. Something simple as when I was 17, 18 years old, and I was invited to a friend's birthday party at Pizza Hut, and being told that I couldn't go because it's a silly reason, so I won't go into it. But trying over and over to make things work in a way that worked for everybody, and then ultimately realizing that I couldn't breathe. I couldn't live the life that I wanted in a way that was going to work for me and my family, and ultimately sneaking around. So my way of circumventing the system was telling my family that I was going to the library after school, which I was, but I was there to have social time with my friends because that was the only way I was going to get it. And from there, the deceptions just grew and grew, all because they couldn't accept that there is this child in the family who wants to have some social time with her friends.
No, I appreciate you sharing this here. And it's if you're good with it, I'd love to like explore just a bit around like the circumventing and sneaking and the deceptions here. Like those words that you use, like they have energy behind them. They have energy behind them. And I'm kind of curious, like, how did it feel for you? Be it like it felt like at that time that was the way that you chose to that you chose to be able to actually go and be out in the world. How was that? Like, if you go back to the 17-year-old you, the 18-year-old you, and specifically in that moment, let's say the time that you wanted to go to the library, like what was going on for you internally that, how did you feel as that was going on? I just need to check in with you on that.
Yeah, that is something I remember very clearly. Mm-hmm. For me, it felt like I was two different people.
Mm-hmm.
I was two different people. I was one person with my friends, the person who could speak her mind, the person who could laugh, just relax. And as soon as I got to the front door of my house, I had to silence myself, shut off my thoughts, just nod and smile, concur, agree, comply, all the things. And yeah, I feel like, I wonder if my family had any idea. I can't imagine they wouldn't, but maybe they were just so caught up in the vision that they had for who they wanted me to be that they simply couldn't see me being any other way.
And when you say that, I hear the way that you hold your family like in high regard. There's still a lot of love there, and at the same time, there is this element of like being able to be seen as you, and yeah, there's an element. I'll talk to people around this, and they'll talk about being like compartmentalized, or they're like fragmented, or they're, it may be with different groups of friends. It might be, this is how I am in the office, this is how I am. Something completely different. Said I'm like two completely different people. I see you nodded. What's coming on? Yeah, I'm still here. I see you nodding. What's coming on to you, like as I say that?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's informed the way that I do the work with my clients. It's just looking at the different fragments of who we are in the world and how we show up in different relationships and within different systems, and exploring those and asking and reflecting which of these is me, which of these is me as a result of my environment, and which of these is me in spite of my environment.
Okay, so I'm gonna want to explore this a little bit further with you as we go on, but I'm gonna ask a question that feels right for me here. The two people element, and so it could be two people. Some people might experience it as even more people. I know for me, I was someone who fitting in was very big for me. I'm the first generation. My parents are from Ghana, West Africa. I remember them sitting me down when I was young, around 7 years old, and said, "You look at the people on the TV. Those people they're Black Americans. You are African. They actually said you're African. Like you come straight from Ghana, your first generation. Like you don't do the things that you see there." And so I would see the things around me, see things in my life, and just feel a disconnect, and not necessarily sure how to be. And the thing that almost like to the pink and blue spoon, I'm like, I'm not a Black American, nor am I an African. Like I'm this other thing. I have to choose this other path. So fitting in was the place where I found myself kind of like trying to navigate there. For you now, do you still feel that you play a two-person game? Do you find like you're more? I'm kind of curious about how that's evolved for you in this moment. It doesn't have to be. It's funny. I want to make sure I state this here because I know we're on Outliers Edge, and it's be like, oh, it's super empowered, and like I'm totally like. I just want to be real with you. I'm really curious.
No, I mean, I don't think we can be the same person in all places. Mm-hmm. We are in community everywhere we go, and the environment is going to inform which piece of us shows up, you know? And so for me, I do pick and choose. I'm not going to be vulnerable and raw with everybody I come across. Frankly, some people don't deserve that energy from me. Frankly, I'm going to be a little bit more selective, you know, it's going to be earned. So no, you definitely don't have to be the same everywhere you go. But I think the key to that is that when you understand the essence of who you are, and you have that within you, and you have it with you everywhere you go, regardless of how it's presenting to people, that to me is true power.
Yeah, when you say that, like the image of a bicycle wheel comes to mind, where it's like there's like the hub and the spokes, right? And when you talk about like the essence, essence to me is a beautiful word. It's like it's down to the core, the true essence of you. It's like I get the sense that it's like you might look at different hubs, different areas, might see a different angle or different vantage point that still connects back to the essence, as opposed to almost being essentially a completely different person. You know, and so let me know. I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but what I feel like I'm hearing is like Abbi's Abbi, where she goes, and yet at the same time, like you may see more of this side of Abbi, or you might get more of this. You might have access to this other spoke of Abbi, depending on the relationship, the context, and things like that. But in terms of actually masking, silencing yourself, like that is not necessarily as present. If you choose to be silent, it's a choice, not that you're making from that place. Let me know. I like one of the things I try and do is while I'm summarizing, I try very hard not to actually just speak for someone. So I don't need to be right or wrong about that. Just what resonated with what I said.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. I mean, that is what it is. It's my choice. When it comes from a place of personal choice and freedom, that's what the power is. So I'm not going to silence myself because that's what people want from me. I will speak up, but I will silence myself because I don't think that I want to put my energy with them in the space right then. You know, I don't know if I'm saying it as well as you did, but yeah, you basically nailed it.
I think it's an important distinction. I think it's an important distinction here because there's a lot of things. I haven't used this word in a while. I'll use the A word, authenticity. Right. And so I use the A word in that way because it actually is a really wonderful word that I think has been used in so many different ways that it's lost its power. Right. Yeah. It's lost its power. And one of my things is if you're really afraid of something, you like take the word and modify it so that it no longer means what it should mean. Right. But the authenticity element of it all seems to be like at play here in this conversation, and to allow that to allow that to have the space that it needs. And I think along those lines, there's times where I'll look at myself as well. In an attempt to be vulnerable, it's like are we actually hitting what is actually vulnerable for us? Or is it something that will be, I don't know, almost like externally viewed as vulnerability? Is it something that is actually, are we being as honest and transparent in your language? Are we being like as honest and transparent in terms of what is really real for us in that moment or not? And I love that what I'm hearing from you is that you stay in the owner's seat. You stay in the leader, you choose to be a leader in it. And it's not that it's happening to you. It's just more like from your standpoint, is this a place where the way I think of it is like, Abbi is pretty awesome. And is this a place where Abbi wants to go and bring in some of that awesomeness right now? And or is this a place where she's like, actually, you need to do a little bit more if you're going to like come meet me on my level. And then we'll play a little bit more in that realm, but it's not just readily available. Am I getting that?
Pretty much it. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. I get that. And I, as I said, readily available, I realize I want to do just a little bit more service to you. I feel like it's readily available for you. It's just not open. It's just not like anyone can just come and get it. It's like, if you want it, it's available for you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So Abby, like I'm curious, like how are you utilizing your outlierness out in the world right now? How is this all coming to life for you?
So, I mean, I have to say that, it's easy to fall into the compliance game,
Mhm.
to do things the way everybody else is doing them, because those messages are so loud and they're everywhere, regardless of what I'm doing, whether it's just being a community member in my neighborhood, or I'm doing something with my business in the online space and I'm hearing from gurus and coaches online, and just running that through my filter, my personal filter. And how is this actually resonating with me? Is this giving me a sense of should? Is this giving me a sense of FOMO? Or is this something I actually want to get on board with? And in that, I think there's a discernment, right? Just being a little bit more picky, being a little bit more selective, and recognizing that sometimes the answers aren't going to come from outside of me, but they're within me. And through all the mess and the navigating the external things, I'm going to tap into randomly something within myself, like my daughter with the pink and blue spoons, and a green option is going to pop up. And I'm just going to go, oh, that's my answer.
Mhm.
That's the way I want to do it.
I actually do. In this regard here, as you're saying this, it sounds like a process that feels really uh, dear to me now, but not something that I knew that I knew of beforehand, nor that I knew was like both available and okay to have. Some of the things that I'm hearing here, and part of what I'm hearing, some of these things. Some of what I'm hearing is one, you have filter, you have discernment. I think about it as like distinctions. Like I look for nuance, and I look for and we filter in what we decide to let in and how we decide to let it come in. Am I getting that right there on the
Yeah,
filtering?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you also said something. It was kind of like just a bit of the just in the flow of words, but you talked about like navigating the mess, navigating the mess, and I feel that that is something that is if I was going to talk about the journey, the path to where I see people really be able to come on the other side as an outlier and be on the ownership side of it, as opposed to being relegated to their environment. It's the element of the mess really does come into play, like being in the place where you relationships get messier, being in a place where the next step to take in the app like becomes a lot less clear, being willing to knowing that something that has worked for you your entire life, like work quote unquote, because it's led you to a certain level of conventional success. Now you have to throw the whole thing up in the air in order to navigate and see where you're going to come to next. So when you talk about the mess, for me personally, I want to just like highlight that a bit there, because I think a lot of times as we're walking this outlier path, it's harder to a lot of times we're walking this outlier path and we start to have successes and we start to see things go right and we start to see people praise us. We start to say, oh, this is like, we start to hear things. We start to get money in the bank. We start to get promotions. We start to get people, we start to get external ways. Externally, the system is saying, yes, you are doing the right things. This is more and more of what we want. And then you've made the decision of saying, I don't want any of the options you're offering me. I want this own option, this other thing. We mess mess comes along with it. And if we're not, if I guess my thing is in calling this out, if we're not clear that messiness is actually a part of the process, we might maybe end up missing the opportunities, or staying or languishing a little bit too long in trying to get it right. Kind of curious for you, I took that small little bit there around the mess part, but it feels like something that just needs space. Curious what comes up for you when I say that.
Yeah. I mean, I would say from messy moment to messy moment, it can be anything that takes up anywhere from 10% of my energy to 80, 90, maybe even all the way to 100. It can really feel like a fight sometimes. And it feels like I'm in resistance. And I know that for me personally, that is not a place where I'm going to get the clarity that I'm looking for. And I have learned that I almost need to honor the messy moments. I need to process it through. So I need to go through the feelings of shame and the fighting and feeling, whatever fears that go through my mind with, depending on the thing, right? I have to honor both sides of that. I have to recognize that, okay, like this is just the moment that I'm in right now. And I know that I'm going to find my way through this, but for now, this is where I am. And I'm feeling like I have blind spots, right? And I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm just going to really feel it. And it's almost like I just cocoon myself inwards. And at some point, the fog just clears. And I see my way through. And it's usually just like a hit of lightning or something that comes through when I'm not even thinking or feeling or being, you know what I mean? It just kind of like randomly strikes.
I think that's so great where it's because it also goes along with the elements of like, how much time do we effort our way through something? It's like we need to get through it. We need to get on the other side. Or for me, there's like negative self-talk. Like I should have had this by now, especially right now. Like 2021 was a huge year of negative self-talk from that. And there was a lot of self-comparison to 2019. I've been here before. Back in the day, I didn't need to worry about this. Oh, when I was like 2020, great. I got to pass on 2020. I'm going to take my own pass. But 2021, I should have been there. I should have had it all there. And as if it was something that I could like contrive and just know that I would like be able to make it right on my own, as opposed to allowing the space and honoring the moment when it clicks.
And I want to take that a step further and just, I'm almost 40.
Yeah.
And it's taken me 15 years to get over leaving my family and being disowned and the shame that comes with that. And I see people, maybe that they'd be in the next generation. I don't know how that works, but I see people in similar situations. They're in their 20s and they're thriving and they've dealt with similar, Desi South Asian family issues. And I just think I'm so late to the game. Like, why am I almost 40 and it's taken me this long to work through this stuff? But that's my journey. That's just what I had to go through. That was my mess, and there's a readiness that comes with that piece that we touched on earlier, that knowing yourself, that self-discernment, self-ownership. There's a readiness that comes with that no amount of people talking to you, with you, or at you, whether it's therapy or your friends, social support, whatever, right? That can help you get to that point of readiness. And so I think for me, it just was going to be at this point. So I can't feel like I'm late to the game. This is just my timing. And I'm happy for the people that have found it sooner. And I'm sure that they'll feel like they're late for something or other, right? I think it's just natural.
You called that out. It's just your timing, Abbi, I'm thinking now earlier, like I made a comment earlier around like the way that you hold your family. And yet there's so much more behind that than I was like, there's a lot of like love and there's a lot of respect that's there. And there's actually a lot that's behind that there. And so like, I just want to acknowledge that we can go down that path if you want to. I'm open to go down there. And I also just want to acknowledge, like, also on my end, I'm like, okay, like I'm seeing you more. I'm seeing that like even like it adds another layer of who you choose to be here. In the way that there's this level of respect and such that comes along with it. So I just wanted to make sure I honor that in this conversation. And I got to that point a little later in the conversation here, but it is my timing for today.
I mean, I'm an open book, so whatever path you want to go down, I'm here.
Yes. Okay. So you said it's been 15 years since you were disowned from your family. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So like, I'm curious here, like, let me just check in and see where the curiosity is. I think the element, the reason that this really strikes me is that I feel that in playing, in really owning who we are, there's the opportunity that we rejection. This is it. This is what's really coming out. Rejection, loneliness, and no longer being able to be a part of something. Like that just feels like it's like the fear that's always on the back of my mind. The thing that holds me back up. If I go and I look at almost everything there, at the very root for me is like this element of, but I'll no longer be accepted. I'll no longer have this here. Even like these opportunities will stop coming, so on and so forth. But you actually went through this process. You actually went through the process of being disowned. I just want to just like, I want to honor that and hold it in the right regard. But also just to see, like, is there anything that you can, how do I say it? It feels, I'm trying right now to see what my question is. I think there's a part of me that wants to honor it. It just seems like there's immense bravery that's involved in it, but that's also me imagining like what it might be. So I'll just be kind of curious here, just because I feel like that element of loneliness, rejection, and such really does show up like in the journey of really choosing to be you. I'm curious about like how that path has been for you, to whatever point that you want to share around it, and the impact of rejection, or the way that you've navigated that with your family since.
That bravery, what looks like bravery, is quiet desperation for me. It's hearing my husband say, my lovely, lovely husband say, who cares? Who cares what they think? And me saying, I care. The quiet desperation for their approval. And I think you just wait until you get to a point where you're done waiting and you realize it's not going to come. That I didn't have for me, it felt like I didn't have a choice but to do things the way that I did. The way that I've shown up professionally in this life, personally, the personal life choices that I have made, they didn't feel like a choice to me. It just felt like, this is what's showing up for me. This is what I have to do, right? Like, yes, it's a choice, but you just feel compelled, like you're going down this life path, or this life path is taking you down it, right? And seeing the conventionality that's showing up along the way, the making money, right? The buying a house, the having a family and having the kids, those conventional pieces around the unconventional choices that I made, which for me was choosing my own husband. That sounds silly to say out loud. But wondering and hoping and waiting, where is that approval going to come? And then eventually just realizing it may never. And again, that readiness to be done waiting. One of my friends, she recently came to me and was asking me about her marriage, was going through a rough patch, and she just wasn't sure, like, how do you know when to call it? And it resonated with me in the sense of, this waiting for approval from my family, and the times before I left, where I was waiting to work things out with my family, where I was trying again and again to work things out with my family. And I said to her, there's a time where it's just going to feel like you're done. Stick a fork in me. I'm ready for the next. I'm ready for the after. I'm done with this.
As you say that, like, it's taken me to places where there's basically like three things that are flowing through me right now. The idea of waiting, waiting for fill in the blank, right? Waiting for approval, waiting for acceptance, waiting. Another element of just the idea of approval, right? And like, yeah, just there's a whole other there's a whole other area around that. And then just also just being ready for what's next. Because I think I look at it, and this is where I think like the difference between when we were saying earlier about like authenticity and such. It's like sometimes I think people try and skip from the waiting for approval to just be ready. And it's like actually that it is not just a switch that necessarily takes place. There's a journey that takes place within there as well. I'll be kind of curious for you a bit here around like if there's anything that you can remember, or things that felt significant for you along the path of moving from waiting for their approval to actually being ready to what came next. I know it was a moment, a random moment and over there, but there may have been some things along the way that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that random moment, I think, was the milestone of my upcoming 40th. And just realizing like, how much longer am I going to play this game? But the process along the way was random conversations with my family that just never went the way that I thought they would, and always had this underlying sense of, are you going to tell me how well I'm doing? Are you going to tell me, like, are you going to give me any show of support? Are you going to give me any sense of faith in me or belief in me? No, what they gave me is what they gave me. And yes, I do hold them in high regard, because at the end of the day, they are my family, they are my blood. And I recognize that we are different. I am not them and they are not me, for better or worse. And I know that they don't necessarily appreciate me talking about such things. Apparently, you're supposed to keep them hush hush, but here I am.
I just wanted to say like thank you for being here. Like here you are, and thank you for being here, and thank you for trusting me and choosing to invest the energy to share here. Because like there's a lot of realness in the choices that you're making. And when I talk to you, like I really do get how much you choose to own this. And I don't think people talk about, I don't think it's I just don't think that we get enough time to express or have aired out like sometimes the costs that comes along with this. And to me, I think that's the part that's part of what has taken away from the power of authenticity. That's part of what has taken has made messiness seem like, oh, I can't go, I must be doing it wrong, because I look at this person and look how strong they are. Like look at this person and look at like they never run into these issues, so on and so forth.
Why isn't it easy for me?
Yeah, it should be, right? I like if I was powerful like this other person, if I was, yeah. And so I'm deeply moved by you. I'm deeply moved by your story right now, and you choosing to share, because to me it's a more full picture. We're not, the picture is not done, but it's just far more complete than most of the other experiences that we get. Where we do, I look at it, I have a program called the Courage Gym, and it's like, because courage is what's necessary in order to be yourself here. Like for some, like there's, and if we don't honor, like, why courage isn't necessary when things are easy, or when there's no danger involved. Like if someone's like, yeah, I sat in my chair, in my home. It's like, all right, I can't consider that a courageous event, but like, you're like, oh, I sat in the chair as I was being slingshot across like a gorge, like totally different. Right. And so I want to recognize you. I said bravery. I want to recognize the courage. I want to thank you for being and bringing this into this space here. I'm mindful of time right now. And so there's elements of here where I want to continue to explore. I'm liking getting to know you. It's really quite awesome. I would love to end this with a question for you, and then I would love to give you a chance to just share anything else that's on your mind for any outlier.
Sure.
The question I have for you, usually I would spend more time exploring this, but just someone that I think it's still a gift to be able to just even just look at this and be able to see this for yourself. We look at Outliers Edge, we focus basically on two edges. One of them is like, what is your edge in terms of what gives you an edge? What's your advantage? And the other question is like, what's your edge? What's your limit? What is that edge for you? I can see the eyebrow and the smile on the second one there. I'm like, yeah, I'd love to create some more time for us to explore that second one a little bit further as it goes along. But I wanted to make sure I asked that question mainly because it gives the space to even just go and consider that. In this moment, I'd love to just give you a chance to speak to either, like let's look at like what's coming up ahead of you, right? So in terms of like the edge of your limits and things like that, like what are you looking forward to? What's coming up for you?
The edge of my limits.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure I understand the question. You're asking me like, what do I see as being my limit?
I'm asking you for right now. Thank you. Normally we would have more time and I would ask more about that in particular. I think what I'm looking for right now is to get a chance to see like on the horizon for you, what feels like it's coming up. And then I think we'll create some more space to explore the limit question. Cause I think that needs to be honored. And I don't think we can do that.
Okay. So I'll answer and just let me know if I'm on the wrong track. Okay. For me, I'm launching a collective here shortly called See My Color. It's for BIPOC people who want to be seen, who want to be visible, hence the name. And there's going to be a magazine, there will be a directory. What else is there going to be? Oh, co-creative sessions and networking sessions and community calls that I've been hosting for a while. So that's next for me.
Can I ask a quick question around that?
Sure.
Why was it important for you to create that program?
I got tired of showing up in spaces where I wasn't being seen. And I just traditional, conventional networking here in America is just very white, and that's not authentic for me, for lack of a better word. And I want to show up to something like that in a deeper way. I want to build actual relationships rather than superficial relationships. I want to have deep, meaningful conversations with people. I want to build the community first, from which the referrals follow organically, rather than simply doing business with the people in the room because you're in the room with them, and I can't say that I got a lot of referrals to begin with. So I'm hoping to create the space that will organically drive more referrals just all around.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Like, just, I feel you a lot more. I feel a lot more of what you're creating from hearing the why behind it than the actual features. I could now that I'm hearing the features, I'm like, it all makes sense given the why, but I'm in on your why behind the collective. It makes me think around it's part of the reason why I actually took like a lot of time off in 2021. I was working, but when I think about moving forward and like the way that things look like for me, there was a lot of actually stepping back and saying what needs to actually come out. I can keep doing more of what I'm doing. It's what everyone says to do. I'm a live video kind of person. So I'm like doing like this stuff is not hard, and yet it's not getting me exactly what I want. And I don't know if this is necessarily me. Like what's missing through this process. And the community was a big part for me. Conversations was a big part for me. I really love that you're going and you're finding ways to create what feels like an environment that was actually meant an environment that's missing for you in terms of how you would like to do life, how you like to do business. It's like, let's go, let's create community, let's be together, let's be seen. And as a result of that, as we're being seen, work connections, referrals will come in the very natural process of us being together and knowing each other, really knowing each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. If someone's interested in exploring more and finding out more about it, like how can they get in touch with you to find out more?
Pretty unofficial right now. There will be a website within about 3 to 6 months. So I don't know when this is going to air. See My Color, and I'm spelling it the British way, just in honor of where I grew up. So it's COLOUR.com. And same handle on Instagram. That's actually where I'm most active right now for that entity. Otherwise, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well, Abbi, I'm really grateful that we had this conversation. I'm really excited for the beginning of our relationship here. If there's one last thing you want to say to anyone that listens to this, what would it be?
Give me a minute.
Yeah.
Embrace the mess. Don't deny the mess. And ultimately know that it's not about you belonging or fitting in anywhere. It's really more about you coming home to yourself and belonging to yourself. Once you have that, nobody can take it away from you, any place, anywhere.
It's a wonderful note to complete on. Thank you, Abbi, so very much. Ready to play at your edge? Come join us inside of the Outliers Edge multiverse, where you have the opportunity to come for 14 days and play in the sandbox of your unique leadership style and take everything about you to its next edge. Go to outliersedge.com/OE guest pass in order to receive your 2-week gift.